Hey guys, so we're back with another video. This is going to be a fairly short video. I'm just going to go through the installation process for the database. So I did mention in the last video we are going to be using a database to store all of our data. The reason why is I did give a small explanation, but I'm going to go through it again. So pretty much this message itself, where is it? This message itself is not going to have, it's not going to be cached all the time, okay? And by default, our code right now, so if you've watched my previous reaction video tutorials, my role reaction videos, we manually wrote if and else statements, right? We manually wrote conditions to check which emoji the user reacted with, okay? Right, but we're not going to do that for this role reaction bot. The reason why is because one, it's hard coded, and two, if you wanted to dynamically add more emojis, it's going to be very difficult. Okay, so that's the reason why we are going to be using a database, because what we're going to do is we're going to save our data to the database, right? It's going to look something like this. So I decided I wanted to use MongoDB. I was thinking about using a MySQL database or SQLite actually, so that way you don't have to install anything, because SQLite is it's an embedded database. Okay, so it pretty much saves everything on the client side, and it's very easy to use. Okay, but I know for a fact that MongoDB is probably the best database to use for this, because we're not really dealing with a lot of relational data. Because in MongoDB, we're going to have what's called a document. Okay, I'll explain it when we get to it. But we're basically going to have a document, and the document itself is just going to be it's going to be the message, I guess. And it's going to have a message ID as the primary key. And then this message itself is going to have all of the emoji IDs that map to the role ID. Okay, so we're going to pull this document from the database, and we're going to check to see, okay, hey, the person that reacted with an emoji, right, inside the message reaction add event, which I'm going to get to later on, we're going to say, hey, did the person react, the emoji that they reacted with, does it match any one of these IDs? And if it does, we're going to get the role ID that the emoji ID maps to, and then we're going to add them to the appropriate role. Okay, so don't worry, we're going to go through the implementation, but right now I want to show you guys how to get started with MongoDB. If you're on Mac, it shouldn't be too difficult to install MongoDB on Mac, but there's a whole bunch of guides out there. Just Google how to install MongoDB on Mac, and it should be fine. Obviously, I'm on Windows, so I'm going to show you guys how to do it on Windows, but all you're going to do is you're going to go to mongodb.com, you're going to go to software community server, and just select MongoDB community server. It's free. Select the operating system. Of course, it supports macOS, Ubuntu, but I'm pretty sure you can also, if you're on Ubuntu, you can use sudo apt to install MongoDB. You can also, if you're on Mac, I think you can also use brew, but of course, downloading it directly from the website is the easiest. So just select your operating system. There are a bunch of different operating systems that you can use. I'm obviously on Windows, so I'm going to select Windows. Select either a zip or MSI file. Select the version. Just use the current release. Don't be too crazy. Don't go too crazy. Click download, and then it's gonna take you to this page, and we're gonna save it to our. Let's see where I want to save it. We're in desktop right now, so I guess desktop would be perfect. So it's 259 megabytes. So open it up. Well, I mean, as of this video, like it could change obviously, but not that it really matters. It's a small download. So yeah, just click next. It's going to tell you to accept the terms of service, license agreement. It's going to tell you, do you want to custom or complete? So we're going to click complete. And basically, you're just going to walk through everything. So it's going to tell you, install MongoDB as a service, run service as network service, run service as local or domain user. So just go with the regular, and it's going to tell you where it's going to install. And you're going to click on, it's going to ask you if you want to install MongoDB Compass, which is a graphical user interface that allows you to view your database, okay? And then just click install, and it should take honestly less than like a minute, depending on how fast your computer is, okay? For me, it probably takes like 30 seconds, but for you guys, it could take, even faster or even slower. It depends on your computer specs, okay? But once you have everything set up, you're going to go to start, you're going to type in Mongo. You're going to type in Mongo, and it should install this shell for you. Again, it's kind of like how when you install Node, it gives you this the Node program. You can actually go into your terminal, and you can just type in Mongo, Okay, and that's going to open up the Mongoose shell for you. It's going to open up the shell for you. Okay, now here's the thing. If you have an error where it says something like Mongo is not a command found, you have to modify your path, okay? Again, it depends on where, so just look up how to set an environment variable for MongoDB and you should get a lot of results. But if you need help, just ask me on my server and I'll try my best to help you out with setting the path. The installation process is very easy though, okay? But assuming that you installed everything, it should not give you any error, but of course, there are situations where this happens. Just Google MongoDB command not found, or just ask me on my server and I'll try to help you out. Okay, with that being said, let's assume that everything runs correctly. You should see the shell. So if I type show DBs, it's going to list all of my databases. Okay, obviously I have a bunch of databases because I've used MongoDB for almost over a year now. So these are all my databases for my projects. If you want to create a database, you can just say create DB and you can just name the DB whatever you want. We're going to call this reaction bots. Create, I think it's create database actually. It's been a while, I apologize. Create database, reaction bot, or actually no, I think it's just use reaction bot actually. Okay, yeah, I'm stuck with MySQL, but okay, so if you want to create a database, you don't actually create it, you just say use reaction bot. Okay, and if you want to create a collection, so in MongoDB they're called, like, your data is pretty much classified into collections, and your collections have what's called documents. Okay, it's pretty much the similar situation to how in MySQL you have tables. In this case, tables in MongoDB are collections, and rows and columns, your data, are pretty much documents in MongoDB. Okay, so we can do DB reaction bots find to find everything, and obviously we don't have anything right now, so it's not like we can I think we can insert by doing insert 1. There we go. And if I do that again, it's going to give us all the collections. In this case, we only have one. I'm sorry, it's going to give us all the documents in this in our collection. In this case, well, actually, wait, hold on. I don't even know where that we inserted to. I needed to create a collection though, but okay, it's been a while since I've used MongoDB's actual query because I am very used to using the ORM. But I'm going to show you guys how to use the ORM so you don't have to worry so much about learning MongoDB, okay? So don't worry, you don't have to learn the queries of MongoDB. You just need to learn the ORM and how to use it, and it's going to take away all of the abstractions for you, okay? But I still recommend learning the query language of MongoDB. It's very easy, okay? But anyways, so assuming that you have, I just wanted to give you a quick preview of how MongoDB works. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward. Create collection. You can just always Google your solutions. Like, for example, if I want to create a collection, I can just do db.create collection. The documentation gives you a very good example. So I can say db reaction bot create collection, and we'll just call this messages. What's going on? I think it's actually use reaction bot. Okay, and we're gonna, I think, db.create collection messages. Okay, so if I show collections, perfect. Okay, so there we go. The reaction bot was from what we did earlier. Okay, so if I do db.messages.find, so since I use the reaction bot db, it's gonna show me all the collections in my reaction bot database. And if I want to insert into messages, I can just do db.messages.insert 1, and I can do ID 12345. It's going to say acknowledge true. Then we can do db.messages.find to list all of it, and you're going to see that's going to list that. Okay, so again, we're not going to worry so much with the query language. I just wanted to show you a quick preview of it. Okay. But that's pretty much it. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to connect to our database. So we're going to install something called SQLize. Okay, so let's exit out of the shell. Okay, but I highly suggest you guys install Compass. It's a pretty nice tool. You can actually check it out on their website. It's a GUI from MongoDB. It's pretty much going to show you the data, in a GUI. If you've used MySQL Server before, or I'm sorry, if you've used MySQL Workbench before, it's kind of like that. So it's pretty cool, very useful. I personally prefer using the shell. Okay, so let's just start our bot again, node, or let's install SQLize. Actually, no, what am I saying? SQLize. SQLize is for MySQL. We need to install Mongoose. Okay, I apologize. It's really late, but we're gonna npm install Mongoose. Okay, so Mongoose, if you don't know what Mongoose is, it is an ORM. Okay, and I just installed it right now. We're on version 5.9.5. So it's an ORM, and it pretty much allows you to interact with your MongoDB database using JavaScript, functions. Okay, but that's one feature that it allows you to do. The main reason why you would want to use Mongoose is to create schemas. Okay, and I'm not going to go into a whole depth on what schemas are. All you need to know is that ORMs typically take your schema that you create and it models it down so that it matches your data on the database. So it's a way to keep things consistent. I'm not going to go into the whole detail on what's the difference between NoSQL databases and SQL databases. I'll probably say that for a future video. I'm not going to go into that, okay? But all you need to know is we're going to use Mongoose. It's an RM. It's pretty awesome. So we already installed already. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a separate folder because I want to keep all of my code categorized. So all the database code should go inside database. Okay, so I create a folder inside the source folder called database, and I'm going to create a file called database.js, and this file is going to be responsible for us setting up our Mongoose connection. So if you look at the website, you can just see a simple implementation. So we're going to say const mongoose equals require mongoose. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect to the database. So by default, depending on how you set up your MongoDB database, like during the installation process, I'm pretty sure you can always change this as well. But by default, MongoDB runs on port 27017. Okay, and if you saw earlier, if I open up the Mongo shell again, you're gonna see that it should say connecting to MongoDB localhost 27017. Okay, cool. But we're just gonna copy this code. There's actually one way that I want to do it. Mongoose.connect. Connect actually returns the Mongo connection. Let me see. It returns. Okay, so it returns a. Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna connect to this database. We're going to enter in the database that we had set up. So what was it that I set up again? Show DBs. We call it reaction bot. So even though you can see that I have all these databases here, I'm actually going to create a different one. So if the database doesn't exist, MongoDB will automatically use it for you, okay, which is pretty cool. If you were using MySQL and if the database didn't exist, sometimes some libraries will create a database for you, some won't, and it'll throw an error. So we're going to call this role. We're going to call it role reaction, okay, and we're going to just leave these parameters as well. Don't worry about what those are, it's just part of the documentation. So this is the important part, okay. So now, what we need to do is we're going to say module.exports equal. Let me see. So if we're doing this, I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do that. I think that's pretty much it for database, but let's go ahead and go into our bot file, and we're going to go into the ready function. And what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and do this db. We're going to require the db. We're going to import the database file that we created. So we're going to say const database equals require database. Okay, so this is going to return the connection, I think. So we're going to call then, and we're just going to say connected to MongoDB, And in case an error happens, we're gonna catch that error. And we're gonna log it to the console. So let me actually run my bot again. So source bot connected to MongoDB. Perfect. Okay, so we're connected to MongoDB. Great. Exactly what we wanted. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So our database connection works. Because obviously, if it didn't, let's say if I change the port just to show you guys, it's gonna throw an error, right? It should throw an error anytime now. Well, it didn't say connected to MongoDB. It should throw an error. Maybe it's lagging. Who knows? But yeah, it would. Yeah, I don't know. But notice how it didn't say connected to MongoDB. Right? I think actually, I don't actually know what the parameter is. I don't know if it actually takes back an error object though. But catch. It takes. Like maybe, I don't know. We're not gonna worry too much about it though. Okay, but anyways, yeah. So it works just fine. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna create a schema for our Mongoose or for our MongoDB database. So if you don't know what a schema is basically a structure for realistically anything. It could be a structure for your class. It could be a structure for your database. Pretty much in MySQL, everything is the schema is basically designed to work for tables and columns. Like you basically have a bunch of tables and columns, right? MongoDB is schemaless, right? And that can be good or bad. Okay, it depends on how you want to use it. But for our case, we technically don't really need a schema, but we're going to use one because using Mongoose allows us to. We don't have to worry so much about using the query, so we're going to define a schema regardless. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to create a model. So we're going to call this message.js. I shouldn't have said that we don't need a schema because we actually do, but I should have said that we don't really need Mongoose because we could just use the default MongoDB driver, but that would require you to actually learn how to use the MongoDB query language, but we don't have to worry so much about that when we have the ORM. So we're going to go ahead and require Mongoose again, and we're going to go ahead and create a schema. Oh, okay, off the top of my head, we're going to say const message schema is going to equal to new mongoose.schema. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new instance of the mongoose.schema class. So schema itself is a class that is part of the mongoose module. So I'm referencing it by saying mongoose.schema, and this is just creating a new instance of it. So here, this is where we're going to define all of our fields. So our schema is going to look something like this. We're going to have the ID of the message. So type message ID, type mongoose dot data types, schema types. It's been a while since it's been such a long time since I've actually used Mongoose, so I apologize for not remembering, but this is the life of a developer when you are okay. I don't think we need to import anything, so we can actually just okay, yeah, I don't think we need to import anything. Okay, yeah. So Mongoose itself will understand it itself because we can have certain data types too. So that's the nice thing about schemas too, is that you can also type check your properties. So message ID should be a string. Required, yes. So we want to make sure that this is required. So the next thing that I want is, instead of actually having a bunch of emoji IDs, since we're using a schema, we're gonna say emoji role mappings, and this is just gonna be an object. We're not gonna make an array. It's just gonna be an object, and it's just gonna have a bunch of emoji IDs. Okay, so we're gonna say emoji role mappings, and type. It's gonna be. I said object, right? Object or true. Well, actually, let me actually check the docs just to make sure. So array is a Okay, seems like object itself. Let me see. There should be a type for any or for object. I don't think object ID is it though. Let me see. Mongoose object type. So weird. I think you need to specify so that it's not like you can't specify. Which low-key kind of sucks. So I have to kind of do some research. So weird how Mongoose itself doesn't have the object type. But it has... Yeah, it's so weird, but... I mean... I don't know, is it? Damn, I'm actually considering on ditching Mongoose, because this is actually pretty annoying, because I really don't want this to be... I don't want it to be an array. Because if it is, that means I have to have an array of objects, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to just directly reference the ID, because then I'm going to have to search through the array. And that's going to take up... it's more of an internal thing, because obviously if you have an array, searching through it is always going to take O of n, if you understand time complexity. But don't worry so much about that, because that's out of the scope. But for those who are aware of what, things like time complexity are, then you'll understand. So that's why I'm so, decisive on what my data is, because, or what my types are. But, I mean, I could make an array, and I could have that array just store one object in that, and every single time. But that's going to be, I feel like that would be bad practice, though, and I don't want to do that. And I really don't think... This is so annoying. Why does Mongoose not have the object type? That's like the most dumbest thing I've ever witnessed ever. And I can't believe I'm spending so much time just figuring out something. But mixed. I mean, I guess mixed could work off. Okay. We'll just say mixed and let it be. And we'll say required. We'll say it's not required. Okay. Hopefully this works. I don't know if it'll work, but okay. So now we have to go ahead and say const message model equal. We're gonna export this, and we're going to need to compile it to a model. So we're gonna say mongoose.model message schema. Okay. So that should compile everything down. So let's actually try this out. So what I'm going to do is, we don't even need to connect to the database, because the Mongoose itself will do that for us. Because we already have this connection already, so we're all good. But inside this model, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do this. We're going to go inside add reactions. We're going to say const message model equals require. We're gonna go back two directories, and we're gonna go into the database /models/message. So you can see message model itself. Message model itself has all of these functions that we can use to insert into the database now. Okay, so let me do a quick example. I'll import it out here. So it should just be this, okay, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and say message model, so we should get no errors. Mix is not defined. Okay, so it seems like we have an error with our model. Mongoose schema types mixed. Yeah, I'm really surprised that there we go. That should there we go. That's good. Okay. So we're going to say message model dot inserts. Well, we can't do that. We have to do so I'm going to show you how to insert into a database using Mongoose. So we're just going to do a sample one real quick. So we're going to say let msg equals new message model. I'm going to pass in the property, so the message model needs a message ID. So we're just going to say one, and it's going to be a string, so 1 2 3 4 5 6. And since this, and it's required to, so you need to pass it in. Emoji role mappings. This is going to be an object. Okay, so now that we've created the model, you need to actually save it. So to save it, you just call .save, and then we're going to call .then to see if it actually fulfilled. So we're going to say m console log that. It's going to resolve the model that was saved. So if it actually saved, then we're going to be good. So hopefully no errors were thrown, and perfect, it actually saved it. And you can see message emoji role mapping seems like it didn't get any let me open up Mongo. Where is it again? Let's see, use role reaction. db.messages.find. Okay, so apparently the emoji role mappings did not work. What if I try emoji ID hello world? What if I try that? Okay, hopefully that will okay, there we go. We had an empty object. Okay, I guess it doesn't work if it's an empty object. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So, okay, so what we're gonna do. So, okay, great. That works. Perfect. That works just how I wanted. And I'm gonna do db.messages.drop. So now my message, all this fake data is gone. Okay, great. So now that that works, that's great. Okay. So, okay. So I guess that's just what I just wanted to give you a quick preview on how to actually use Mongoose. So this video was mostly just to set up MongoDB and as well as set up our Mongoose. The next video I'm actually going to show you guys how to add our data to the database. So we're going to continue off from where we left with the Discord.js part. Okay, so I'll see you guys in part 4. Peace.